Hi, I'm Tara Crank. Welcome to Nature Watch with Coed Lleol, part of the Smallwoods Association. I'm here today to talk to you about the wonders of earthworms. Worms are more diverse than you might think. There's around 3,000 different species worldwide, and in the UK we have 27 different species. I'm going to take you through their anatomy, their importance, and how you can get involved with earthworms too. First of all, let's talk about their anatomy. Earthworms are part of the taxonomic phylum ANNELIDA, which means little rings. That refers to their segmented bodies. They're also part of OLIGOCHAETA, which means few bristles, and that refers to the hairs on their segments that help them move. An earthworm's body is made up of a digestive tract that is surrounded by muscle. On the surface of the worm, you'll see furrows that segment the worm. Each segment has setae on it, which are little bristles that help the worm grip each surface it's on and move. In the first segment, you'll see a muscular lobe in my diagram here. That has the mouth, the pharynx and the esophagus in it. In order to seal its mouth closed, the worm will retract this muscular lobe, and in order to probe its surroundings, it'll extend it. Our worms in the UK have 5 pairs of aortic arches or pseudohearts. These are thickened areas of blood vessel that pump blood around the body. Worms, unlike a lot of other invertebrates, have hemoglobin in their blood, just like us. Just like in birds' digestive systems, worms have a crop and a gizzard too. The crop is a soft organ that stores food, and the gizzard is much harder for breaking it down. When food enters a worm's body, it goes through the mouth and is swallowed by the pharynx. When it enters the esophagus, calcium carbonate is secreted, and that is in order to regulate the levels of calcium in the body. The food then is stored in the crop before making it into the gizzard, where it's ground up by stones that the worm has previously swallowed. After this, it makes it into the rest of the digestive system, the intestines, which are surrounded by blood vessels, so that the nutrients can be broken down by digestive fluids and absorbed into the bloodstream for the worm's cells to use. Worms are hermaphrodites, meaning that they have the sexual reproductive organs of males and females. They keep their own sperm in the seminal vesicles, and they collect the sperm from other worms in the spermatocia. The female part of the worm is called the clitellum, or the saddle. It's this smooth band, and it's visible only on adult worms. So if you see a worm out and it's got one of these, you know it's an adult. Worms start off life in a tiny cocoon shaped like a lemon. When they hatch, they look like a little piece of thread and are quite pale in colour. Juveniles develop their colour a little bit more and more defined segments. Adults have this clear saddle, which is where the eggs are stored, and because they're hermaphrodite, they can reproduce asexually, but it's more beneficial for them to exchange genes, so they sort of top and tail and exchange sperm. When it comes to cocoon production, the saddle produces a mucus and sheds its skin, which moves towards the head of the worm. That collects the sperm and the fertilization happens inside there. It eventually comes off the end of the worm and hardens in the ground, which is where the cocoon forms. Each of our 27 species of UK worm has a different preference on habitat. Some like to live in the leaf litter at the top of the soil, and some burrow really deep in complex tunnel systems. Now, there are 4 groups of species that we're going to talk about today. They are called ecotypes, and we're going to go and find some now. Let's go! The 4 types of worm are compost, epigeic, endogeic, and ANECIC. Compost worms love a warm, moist environment with plenty of rotting vegetation. I'm here on the compost heap at Glassburn Community Farm, and we've got plenty of just that. Compost worms are often bright red in colour and sometimes even have stripes, which is why they're often called tiger worms as well. Oh, look at those stripes. They reproduce at quite a high rate, and they also eat really fast. So they're great for getting rid of waste material and for removing contaminants from soil. Look! Come and have a look. Epigeic worms live in the surface soil. We've got some here. And you can see they're bright red as well, but they tend not to have the stripes. So they eat the leaf litter, and they tend not to make burrows either. You can also find them in tree hollows and in rotting logs. The endogeic worms live in the top few centimetres of the soil. They eat the soil too, breaking it into further smaller nutrients that the plants can use. They make horizontal burrows, which sometimes they reuse, and they come in all sorts of colours. They're generally really pale, sometimes grey, sometimes pale pink, green, or even blue. ANECIC worms can be found in grasslands. They contain some of the largest worms that we have in the UK, and they have a dark brown red head and a paler tail. They create vertical burrows that are permanent, and they eat by dragging leaves from the top down into the burrow and eating them in there. They form casts, which are just squiggly bits of poo at the top of their burrow, and you can also see the tops of their burrows by looking for middens, which is just a collection of casts. Worms play a critical role in the ecosystem. As well as being food for birds, they make up 60% of a badger's diet, and moles eat 50 grams of worms every day. They've been named ecosystem engineers for the structural work that they do in the soil. By creating their vertical and horizontal burrows, they allow oxygen and water to penetrate the soil and get down to the depths, as well as allowing carbon dioxide to come up. Simply by eating and pooing, worms break down the organic matter in the soil. So dead parts of animal and leaves, which are often called detritus, are broken down in their digestive system into finer nutrients that are then available to plants and to bacteria and fungi that further that process. Now, without all this, we wouldn't have our food crops. So for us, we should be really grateful for our worms. In 2019, 42% of farms surveyed were seriously lacking in worms or didn't have any at all. Now, this has a knock-on effect to the bioavailable nutrients for our crops. So if you want to support food sustainability, support no-dig farming practices. You can also make sure that you have space in your garden for worms, which isn't too hard to do. Make sure that you have areas that you don't dig up. I hope this video has opened your mind to the amazing world of worms. Now, some in Australia get up to 3 meters long, and some are as small as just 1 centimetre. They can be blue, green, pink, brown, all sorts of colours. Now, if you want to look up different species of worm, I recommend the OPAL guides, which you can find online, and the Earthworm Society of Britain has some great resources too. Thanks for watching this video. I'm Tara Crank, and if you'd like to see more like this, look at the rest of the Coed Lleol channel. If you liked it, like and subscribe.